Have you ever heard that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? Have you ever tried getting a job after school, but you need experience for the job and you need the job for experience? Starting out as a photographer and wanting to pursue this hobby as a full-time career is an uphill battle to say the least. Today, I'm gonna bring you guys on 2 separate menu photo shoots I did last week, and I wanna share a few of the psychological secrets I picked up throughout the last decade to break from that Matthew effect, and have helped me consistently book new clients, stay busy for months ahead of time, and then shoot some fun photos along the way. So who the hell's Matthew? Well, this phenomenon can really feel like it plays a large role in determining how busy you can even become as a photographer. The term is described as the tendency for people to gain socio-economic success in proportion to their initial socio-economic level. Whether you're starting out as a photographer, it feels almost impossible to compete with those that have, 20 years of seniority and connections and experience over you. You might be able to accomplish the same task and maybe even do it better. But humans just love familiarity. We love holding on to relationships for far too long, even down to business relationships. It's easier to just use the same photographer again than meeting someone new and adapting to a whole new workflow. At the bare minimum, you can't offer more of the same. So one of the first tricks to do is to just be different. But obviously that's a little bit too easy just to say, like, no, just be yourself because everyone else is taken. Nah, but you do have to approach your art differently if you want to succeed in creating for a living. We're artists, we want to be creative, yet we all have that same 24 hours in a day. So you gotta be analytical and logical if you wanna make a living at it. Look, I don't wanna sit here and preach to you all that I have every answer, and if you follow this exact blueprint, you too could be making 6 figures next year. That's not the vibe, and anyone who sells you that angle is lying. I'm not in my final form, I don't have billboards with every recognizable brand under my belt. I'm no photography guru, but a couple years ago, I dreamt of having what I have now, and I'm very excited to see where I'll be in the next couple years. So this is for those of you who are at that cusp of making a couple bucks with your photography, wondering what it takes to maybe ditch your job and shoot full time, or if you're just curious and you want to tag along as a BTS of these shoots because you're interested in the craft, well, welcome. If you're new here, my name is Sergio, I'm a commercial photographer. I create adverts for local and international brands here in Victoria, BC, and last week I was fortunate enough to work with 2 restaurants here in town, a Thai place and a Vietnamese Korean restaurant. So obviously I've been eating pretty damn good all week. So how do you do it? How do you get ahead? How do you book multiple shoots in the same week? I know I titled this the Matthew effect, but really the secret to breaking from the Matthew effect, breaking out of your socio-economic circle, starts with the butterfly effect. And no, not Ashton Kutcher's regrettable acting choices, but the idea that small, unnoticeable actions grow drastically over time. You gotta plant your seeds. You gotta be the first in people's minds when they need a photographer. Whether you shoot with grocery vendors, local restaurants, or for magazine publications, it all starts with relationships. I know we're trying to be photographers and we all care about the lighting and the angle and getting the depth of field just right, whatever it may be. But when a client is looking to book a photographer, the photos themselves are kind of the last important part of the decision. You have to do your homework and find out who is buying photos in your area and start being a friendly face. Here in Victoria, the city itself is pretty small, just about 300,000 people, but we see a very large influx of tourists during the summer months, which actually gives us the most restaurants per capita, I think in Canada or in North America, something like that. Hey, editing Sergio, can you just pop it up right here? Let me know what's fact check that for me. That means in this market, there's a lot of demand and not a lot of competition, at least relatively. And when it comes to international or Canadian-wide brands, they just ship me stuff to my studio. So if you're worried because you don't live in New York or LA or London or Paris, you can breathe a little sigh of relief. You can make it work and you can be super successful even in the smallest communities. But it just furthers my point that you really need to foster those relationships. You wanna work with that brewery? Go drink at their tasting bar every Friday for a year. Be a friendly face. You wanna take super fancy headshots of barbers? Go get your hair cut first a couple times and then be a friend, tip well, say hi. If you wanna book big agency gigs, you have to meet the reps and maybe pick up a new hobby. Be their friend before you dump all your spec work onto them. The most selling happens when the least selling happens. Coke's advertising is never about the product, it's about how it makes you feel as a consumer of their product. So don't meet people and businesses and just be like,
hi, I do all these things, I'm really good, I charge less than most people, please hire me, please, please, please.
Just be a friend, be a fan, and let the relationship build naturally. And over time, when that beauty salon has that extra little bit of budget for ads, when the agency books a new client that reminds them of a conversation that you two had, well, now they'll have someone to think about. So for this first restaurant, you may have caught a glimpse of this time lapse in last week's video, but to break it down a little, the restaurant itself had like a 30-foot wide facade that was all windows, super bright, and it was creating a very big wash of light that I really did not want. Kind of the opposite of the other restaurant, but I'll get to that in a bit. The floor here is carpet, and the tables were waxed or shiny in some way, so neither of those would work well for backdrops. What I ended up doing was just I brought a backdrop from PropFace to hide the table and hide any nasty reflections, and then I exposed my shot so that the carpet was just black and didn't show up in the frame at all. It would give a more upscale look to the images, kind of like a fine dining-esque, but that meant I needed to flag out the main light in the back, which is an 8600 Pro on the C-stand back there. The restaurant was still operating, even though it was early, they were just opening up for lunch. I didn't want to set up another light stand and have even more stuff in the way. So what I did instead of a flag was just feather the medium intensity reflector upwards rather than pointing it directly at the table. And that way the throw was able to miss the floor and not light up the carpet. I do have a fill light as well, which when I showed up, I noticed that they had red walls everywhere. Thankfully, there was a white ceiling though. I am bouncing an 8200 up on the ceiling and adding a little fill, but not too much so that it wouldn't illuminate the carpet. These are all f11, 1/25 of a second, ISO 160, and I believe everything was shot on the 33. There's 2 drinks on the 80mm, and the hero shot was also taken on the 10-24. But the settings would be the same for every lens. Anyone can get lucky and take a good photo, but it takes a commitment to the craft to create consistent results any day of the week in any situation. And for this next shoot, there was actually a separate photographer also shooting. I believe he was doing their DoorDash menu or something, but all natural light. So I let him have the table next to the windows. We did get to chat a little bit, real nice guy. He said he used to shoot stock footage on slide film like 30 years ago. Wow, talk about control. But anyway, I went in basically with the idea of doing the same style of images as the first place, which I did, but it's kind of funny because they were just trying to promote their new takeaway lunch menu, and the food is all in like plastic Tupperware. So yeah, take that as you wish. They were stoked though, so everyone's happy. But yeah, I essentially took the same lighting setup, but this time instead of a second light to bounce, I just put a right reflector to bounce light back into the harsh shadows rather than a fill light. What do you guys think of the results? The most important thing about being a photographer is doing it over and over and over again. Put the same effort you do in fostering new relationships as you do in creating your art. As long as you think you're decent, you're probably good enough to work. And if you're not, you'll find out pretty quick. But get a portfolio, have something to show, and then just focus the rest of your energy on building relationships, being a genuine fan and asset to your community, and over time, you're gonna break out of that socio-economic circle. I moved here 4 years ago, and I would only say I started getting consistent work about 2 years in, and that was still after a good 6-7 years of shooting full-time prior to this. So look, nobody really cares how good or great you are, just as long as you're better than the client booking you. And you can bridge the gap they need. You don't need to be competing with the whole world. You don't need to compete with your Instagram feed. Just be a good person to work with, focus on relationships, and the busy will come, and then the money follows. Good luck. If you like this video, I recommend you check out the outdoor menu photo shoot I did right over here. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.